Well, hello there. Thanks for dropping in, and happy 2018. Come on in. Hey, C Squared here. It's 2018. Happy New Year. I haven't done a video in a while, so I thought I might do one on a topic that I always find pretty interesting, and that's when I see people show their workspace and some of the stuff they've got in it, maybe a little bit about how they organize it, and what and why they use certain things. So let's take a look around this incredibly packed, jam-packed, tiny little space that I've got here that I use for video, audio, writing music, recording music, and doing instruction for guitar stuff, and creative video projects, all kind of things like that I do in this tiny little room. And I've got all the stuff jammed in here, and I try to make sense of it. Sometimes I refer to it as the swirling vortex of entropy, because it refuses to be tamed at times. But anyway, I still get stuff done in here, and I thought it might be fun to show you around. So let's take a look. Alright, so let's start with some of the fun things. Over here on this wall I've got some Gibson guitars and some amps, so let's go through those real quick. Right here is my 95 Les Paul Standard, which is, I wouldn't call it a sentimental favorite, but it is sort of just a general use favorite. I've probably played more gigs and more recordings, more situations on that guitar than anything else. It's got a great tone. It has DiMarzio 36th anniversary PAFs in it, so that's a little modification. Other than that, it's pretty well the stock thing. I've changed, maybe just the electronics. The pots are different, and the tuners have been changed. But other than that, it's pretty much a stock type of setup. Sounds incredible. Better than many Les Pauls that cost a lot more. So next to it here is my 1983 Les Paul Custom that belonged to my cousin Johnny back in the 80s. And since then I've acquired it. It's pretty much stock. Has the Tim Shaw humbuckers in it. That of course, what came in it. And the only thing that's ever been changed really on it is the tuners have been changed, but they're the same kind that came on it. I made a whole video on that guitar, so if you want to see something about it. It's a great tone, really super even sounding to my ear. So moving across, we've got another 83 Gibson here. Well, this is a Heritage Edition Flying V, and it's pretty much stock too. Again, the tuners are all that's really been changed on it. It is great shape. I got a great deal on it. It was the only way I could afford it, and still the most expensive guitar I've ever bought. But killer shape, sounds great. Has a little bit small frets on it. One of these days I'll change those out. But other than that, it's I love just the stock setup on that guitar. I always like playing. Specifically playing Ziggy Stardust on it. I only had it a couple of years, but I've played it a number of times on some gigs, and for some reason that was always a song that I associate with playing on this guitar. Moving across from there, I've got another Flying V. This one is I think it was from 2000. Yeah, and it is a 98 limited edition V, but it's from 2000, and it's almost stock, I guess. But I have replaced the pickups with DiMarzio. I think that is a Air Classic, and this one is an Air Zone, which for some reason just works perfectly in this guitar. I love the tone of it. And in recent times, that's been my favorite guitar to play Highway Star on, because for some reason the keyboard solo was easy to, or not easy, but easier for me to play with the kind of frets that are on this Flying V. They're just, they're really nice. They're kind of big, but they feel real comfortable. And the guitar's got a lot of rage in it. Okay, moving across from there, this is a Gibson Les Paul Special, and it is a really great kind of old school, I guess late '50s kind of style guitar with this one has Lawler P90s in it, and this guitar was given to me by my really good friend Kenny Venator. He blessed me with this guitar for my birthday one year. It's really awesome. It plays great, has a great tone. Those Lawler pickups are fantastic. And Kenny painted it himself. It's kind of a sort of a terracotta shade of a little bit darker red than terracotta, but it has a little bit of that to it. And it's got a good bit of sparkle in there. Great guitar for when you need that single coil clarity, but you still need some Gibson whomp. This Strat is a 2012, I guess 2012. It might have been made in 2011. I bought it in 2012. It's just a standard, an American standard, and it has again DiMarzio pickups. I've actually changed a lot on this guitar. And I bought this guitar mainly, it's sort of a funny thing. I bought it because it was the color really matched the color of the Mad Margaret Show No Mercy album, and I wanted a Strat to play on stage at the time that I could modify. So I bought this, and even though it's got single coil type pickups in it now, at the time I put a humbucker in the bridge, like a Tone Zone or something like that, and just kind of outfitted it to play with those guys and do the heavy metal kind of thing. But since then, I'm not in the band. I left the band back years ago, and I converted it back to single coils, but these are DiMarzio Area 61s, I think, and then the bridge is Heavy Blues 2. And I love this combination, yeah, so it's a sort of a noiseless single coil setup. And as you can see, it's got a different pick guard on it. And I scalloped the fretboard, so I don't know if you can really see that on the camera, maybe a little bit. But it's a light scallop that I did because I felt like you just couldn't really grip this guitar well enough. So I just kind of got after it with the files, and then I skinned all the finish off of it and put gunstock oil and wax on it to try to seal it. So, and it's done great since then. It plays great, but little DIY kind of stuff going on. But I've modified the heck out of this guitar. It's got different tuners. And it used to have a tremolo in it, but I got tired of playing with that, so it's back to normal, regular old tremolo. And moving on next to that is a Martin GP CPA1. And that's the main acoustic guitar that I play anymore. I used to do a lot of classical stuff, but I don't really do that so much anymore at all. And but so when I play acoustic, I really love to play this Martin. It's very playable, but it has that classic Martin, real woody kind of a tone to it. The frets are kind of smaller than say a Taylor would have. So while it might not be quite as easy to shred on it, it just gives you this great sound. I really love that real mid-range sort of vowel sound that it has. And I like to use the Tommy Emmanuel Martin strings on it. All right, so let's check out the amps. Okay, so before we get to the actual amps, we've got this right here is the Etherwave Theremin. And I got that when we started covering, doing kind of a tribute to Led Zeppelin in my band. And pretty soon, though, I found out that I liked to use it as like an awesome toy. I liked using it on a lot more than just the Led Zeppelin Whole Lotta Love cover. So I started using it on a lot of things like Highway Star. And moving on from there, my favorite amp of all time, this is a 73 Marshall Super Lead. Metal panel, so it's a little bit more aggressive than the earlier Plexis, but this is one of the last hand-wired Marshalls, so it's an early, I think it was assembled in March of 1973, if I remember correctly, but it's all hand-wired, and it has very little changes made to it other than it's been hacked on a little bit. It has a discreetly placed master volume in the back, yeah, of course, it always sounds best if you can just crank it. And somebody cut this hole in the side, Put that little fan-like grill there. I guess maybe before I got it years ago, somebody had it stacked up in a rack or something and needed some air. But I wish they hadn't done that to it. But man, what a great amp! This thing is fantastic. I probably played more gigs and recorded more things with that than anything else I've got. Under it is a Mojo cabinet with 4 greenbacks in it. So the 25 watt greenback Celestians. Obviously, great combination with that head. Moving next to it is a Marshall Silver Jubilee 2553, the 50 watt head, kind of the smaller 50 watt head. While it may not be my sentimental favorite amp of all time, it's fast becoming a practical favorite of all time because it sounds great at any volume pretty much, and the master volume is just amazing on it. And the effects loop works better, sounds better to me than any other Marshall I've ever had or tried. And it's also being a little bit smaller. It's just a little lighter and easier to get in and out of gigs with it. It's only a 212 cabinet, but it's proportioned to look perfectly correct with the head. So to me, that's just one of the unsung heroes of the Marshall lineup is this little 2553 head and cabinet. Moving on next to that, up here's a little Class 5 Marshall. This amp, I would say I have more of a sentimental love of it than an actual love of the sound. I don't think it's really that great, but it's very practical sometimes when you just need to grab something to take to a rehearsal, and I've enjoyed teaching with it too because it's just a plain sort of sound. Unless you turn it up loud, it starts to growl, but it doesn't really have the kind of sound that I expect out of the bigger Marshalls. Moving below that is an absolutely fantastic clean amp, is an Andrews Spectraverb 40, and this is one of the best clean tone amps that I've ever heard. I don't think I've ever heard a clean tone that I thought sounded any better, and hardly anything that sounded as good as this. It's basically a blackface Fender circuit, but Jeff Andrews, who built it, lives here in Atlanta and builds these amps here. He just did an exceptional job on this, and I did a demo review type demo video to promote this amp when he first put it out. You can see that on the Guitar Breakdown channel, and also there's a shorter edit of that video on Jeff's website for Andrews amplifiers. So anyway, that's just a fantastic all hand-wired Fender style clean amp. Next to that, going over here in the bookcase, I hollowed out a shelf. There's tons of music books in here surrounding this exceptional 18-watt head that my friend Kenny Venator, same guy that made the same guy that gave me this Gibson Les Paul Special, built this for me back in about 2002, 2003, and at the time I was playing the super leads, and they were just, the 100-watt amp was just so it was awesome, but it was impractical on some of the smaller gigs, and the power attenuator sound was kind of bugging me. So Kenny made me this incredible amp that's basically a super lead with an 18-watt output section, and so it's got that same super lead growl to it. It's super punchy. It's incredible. Another fantastic amp, and I was really blessed that he did that for me. And it's all hand wired. It looks like artwork on the inside, and that's a little bit different than like the 20-watt Marshall Plexi or the 18-watt Marshall combo Plexi that you can get. Those are awesome amps, but they're not really the same personality as like a super lead would be. So this was an amp that Kenny built for me that gave me that sound without having to lug the 100-watt when I wasn't going to be able to use that kind of output. Okay, so let's check out the next wall. So this is my recording desk kind of setup, and I've got a 2011 MacBook Pro that I just use for, I used to use it for a lot of recording and video, but now I just mainly use it for Finale and word processing and things like that. Maybe a little bit of photo editing. So for video and audio these days, I mostly record with this 2016 iMac with Retina display. I use Final Cut Pro and I use Cubase Pro. And for any kind of photo stuff, I use Photoshop and Lightroom and all that. And I don't know, there's probably some other programs that I use a lot that I'm not thinking of. Then I've just got some old Event 2020 monitors, but they've sufficed for me so far. So it's a mix of old and new here, really. Competing technologies. Here is the Mark of the Unicorn, or Motu 896 HD, that I've had since 2002 or 3, 2003 probably. Or maybe it was early 2004 now that I think about it. But that thing has been insanely great. Those guys really know how to make a product that lasts. And hopefully it'll still work for a lot longer. I'm using a cable to connect it here that's taking Firewire 400 to 800 to Thunderbolt, I think. So it's sort of crazy, but it still works. Cubase recognizes it, and the sound is really good. So I'm still using it. Sitting on top of that is a little Joe Meek equalizer, kind of a low-end one, but it works well when I just need a little bit of compression, especially for bass or for vocal recordings. And then on the bottom there is an old RA100 Alesis amplifier that I use for the monitors, and it's old. I bought it used even when I got it, and it's been a long time. I'm still using it. So that's another piece of old technology. Somewhat as is this Mackie mixer that I just use to mix things here at the desk, just to route signal mainly, not really for any EQ or anything, just to route the different signal sources. And inside here, I made this little door for this desk so that I could hide the ugly truth that's underneath, which is extra hard drives, gaff tape, just some things like that, things like that, compressed air to have on hand. Cables hanging on the walls. Got my old cameras that I used for video. I still use them for photography, but those are what I used to do instructional videos with. They're just kind of a little bit lower end Canon DSLRs, a T3i and a T2i. But man, did they do a good job for the money. They were amazing. But times change, and technology kind of requires that you move forward. So what I'm recording with now is a Panasonic GH5, which is a many times more expensive camera, but it does 4K and all kinds of things that I could talk about in different videos. Up here, just more storage of extra video and audio stuff. And yeah, let's look at that. Okay, so this thing is really cool. It's people always ask about it when they saw it on stage, but it's an actual Geiger counter box that has an 8-ohm power attenuator built into it. So really cool. I used to use it a lot with that 18-watt Venator head. And moving over to the other shelf over there, there's just some extra storage up there. It's not really anything important or worth talking about. Always hang cables everywhere, as you can see. It's sort of crazy in here. On this wall, again, just kind of the storage area. And of course, I've got Frank up there who is watching over things to let me know that he may not approve. Of course, I've got our old cat Cypress up here. He looks like he may not approve of everything I'm doing either. And back here, camera stuff. I've got I have this little shelf that I kind of keep the stuff that I shoot video with ready to go. So that's Panasonic lenses and whatnot. So for shooting video, I mount a camera here. It's kind of funny, I've got a mirror hanging here, but that's just so I can see the back of the camera to make sure that the light is on the microphone and I'm getting sound. But I mount a camera here, and it's this way, since it's just mounted to this, I drilled a hole and mounted it on that shelf. I can always attach the camera and come back to the same place. If I need to edit it, I won't have a problem. So I'm usually, I'm facing this way when I shoot instructional videos, and then I'll zoom in so it looks a little more like it. So this is more the view that you would see with me sitting in the middle out here for an instructional video. But that's why I mount that camera there instead of using a tripod or something, is that this way it's always where I want it to be. And if I need to do an edit, it will always look like a seamless cut because the angle of view on the camera doesn't change. But anyway, yeah, so that's mostly it. Other than that, I've got some storage. Oh, one point that's funny, I've got an old SD television here that I've had for decades. And I keep it because for some reason, if I need to look at something that's SD resolution, it just always looks weird to me on an HD television or monitor. And it just looks better on the format that it was designed to be presented on. So I keep that around. Also have something to duplicate tapes and CDs or DVDs with, and just a good old-fashioned VHS player down here. And I keep all that stuff just so that when I want to watch something that was originally done that way, it looks right. Anyway, other than that, I've just got some storage over here, green screen tucked away. I don't like to use it that much anymore. Small room like this, it's kind of hard to make a green screen look good. A little bit of some video lights that I keep in here for shooting videos so that things don't look bad. You gotta have a lot of light to use a decent video camera and not have it look really bad, so I like to use that. And then over here is a big reflector that I hang over this. It's unfortunate that I've got these mirrored closet doors in here because they cause a lot of not only light reflection that's real harsh, but they also reflect a lot of sound. So I have to kind of hang something over that when I want to do any mixing or anything. And this reflector, not only does it reflect the light and bounce it to the side that I want, it also kind of damps the sound down just a little bit if I'm sitting next to it. So kind of a double use there. Okay, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this nickel tour pretty much of my little humble workspace here. And if you like this video, click like, and if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe and stick around, come back and check out more stuff to come, and have a great 2018. As Jimi Hendrix would say, I'll see you in the next one, so don't be late.